Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, has his government delivered on his expectation of a more equal society? And as a result, is every one of our children getting the very best start to life?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what I actually said in relation to the first quote was the following. We would prefer that there were a more equal society with less inequality. But what the report actually goes on to quite clearly demonstrate is the vast bulk of the changes that have taken place is due to the global financial crisis. Fortunately, this government has an economic plan that is seeing the economy grow and enabling people to get into work. This government is focused on welfare reforms to get people into work. This government has been quite prepared to put up over $350 million to insulate homes in New Zealand. This government has supported under 6-year-olds to get free doctor's visits. This government has supported making sure we reduce rheumatic fever and so on. Quite plainly, not every child is getting the best start to life, which is why we're doing these things that I mentioned.
Order. Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, why have recorded offences of violence, sexual assaults and neglect of children risen 68% on that Prime Minister's watch? And incidentally, what is his government doing to bring back our girls?
Okay. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the last part, I made it quite clear that the government is deeply concerned by the actions of Boko Haram. It's one of the reasons why the government actually listed Boko Haram as a terrorist group under the Terrorism Suppression Act.
Order. Point of order, Honourable David.
Mr. Speaker, in the part of that question which the Prime Minister chose to answer, I'm afraid he didn't answer it because I said what was his government doing to bring back our girls if listing Boko Haram was the sum total.
Order. It's actually questionable whether the second part of the question should have been allowed in relation to the primary question. I let it through. The Prime Minister's addressed that question. Now, order. Again, I'm on my feet. That may well be the opinion of the member, but the way to advance the issue now is to ask further incisive supplementary questions.
Thank you, Mr.
Honourable
Speaker.
David Cunliffe.
Plain and simple, Mr. Speaker, will the budget tomorrow lift the 285,000 New Zealand children currently living in poverty out of it?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we don't agree with that number of 285,000.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, would the Prime Minister care to tell the House how many New Zealand children are living in poverty and whether his budget will do anything to help them?
Right, Honourable Prime
Minister. I don't have the most accurate number on me, but I know it's below 285,000.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Tim McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has the Prime Minister seen any independent assessment of social outcomes in New Zealand?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
I've recently seen, yes, it's absolutely right, Annie. I've recently seen a quite sobering assessment which says, and I quote, the social outcomes which we as New Zealanders have achieved over the past 5 years are somewhat mixed and in some areas quite disappointing. Most of our children appear to be at risk of harm. More of our young people are engaged in petty crime. There is more violent crime and more people in our jails. While more New Zealanders are working than ever before, our incomes have only risen modestly. We are chronically indebted and home ownership rates have fallen. What is perhaps most disappointing about these results is that as a country we've invested hugely in the core areas of social spending over the past 5 years. While this social spending is essential, it seems to have contributed very little to our social progress. It was incredibly damning reading that I read, Mr. Speaker, from the Salvation Army and their nation's report. Oh yes, that was a report in 2008.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Can the Prime Minister confirm that the Salvation Army's social report this year gave his government a D for child poverty?
Absolutely. Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
What I can confirm, Mr. Speaker, is the report gave a much rosier picture of New Zealand.
Order. I don't need assistance. I invite the member to ask the question.
Can the Prime Minister confirm that the current year's Salvation Army social report gave his government a D for child poverty?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, it may well have, but it also gave us a vastly improved report in many categories and a far better assessment than the last 5 years of a Labor government. Yes, what this report says in 2008 is failure of a...
Order! The question has now been answered. A point of order.
In light of your previous ruling, sir, where you generously afforded me the opportunity to repeat the question because it wasn't adequately answered, and
Order,
the question,
just get
sir,
to
was
the
a very...
point, please.
Sir, I ask your leave to ask the question again because the Prime Minister seems to be confused between a maybe and...
Order. I gave the opportunity for the member to ask the question again. He did. It was answered very quickly by the Prime Minister. Then there was some additional information which I thought might have been helpful to the House. When I realised it wasn't going to actually inform the House, I then asked the Prime Minister to cease. Supplementary question. Honourable David Cunliffe.
Could the Prime Minister inform the House why more than 40,000 children have been hospitalised in New Zealand for diseases of poverty since 2008?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, there will be a variety of reasons, but what I can confirm, though, is this government has spent more money on rheumatic fever than any government prior to it. This government has spent more money insulating homes than before. This government borrowed billions of dollars to support programs like Working for Families for the most at-risk New Zealanders. This government spent and insulated well over 340,000 homes. Mr Speaker, the government's done a lot in that particular area.
Supplementary question. Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, is the Prime Minister comfortable that on his watch the income of the top 1% of New Zealanders has risen nearly 10 times faster than the bottom 10%?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I reject the assertion.
Question number 3. John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. How will the budget tomorrow support